Anyways, the topic I'd like to speak about tonight is why am I a Christian? And let me just ask any of you, have any of you ever been specifically asked, why are you a Christian? Yes, no, alright, you have. Alright, but I saw some people shake their heads, no. And the fact is, you know, it'll probably happen eventually. And you're going to need to be able to explain why. And for those of you who have never been asked before, would you be able to explain why? Any yes? No? Okay. Well, alright. It's something that everyone needs to think about. Like, I specifically have never been asked that specific question, but I've been asked about my beliefs before. So, it's something that you really need to know about, because you don't want to say, you know, oh, I'm a Christian, and if someone might just really be curious and ask you, well, why? You need to be able to give them a reason. So as for myself, in terms of why am I a Christian, I pretty much grew up in the church. A lot of you have known me for many years. I know some of you are brand new. But just because I've been in church my whole life doesn't mean my spiritual journey was easy. Being a Christian itself is very hard because it requires you to be like Christ. And that's not an easy task. Only one human in history has ever been able to do it, and that's Jesus. So, if only Jesus was able to be perfect, then what chance do I or anyone in this room have? It's pretty hard, but at the same time I strive to be my best, and I know that is what Christians are called to do. But why do I want to please God so much? And the reason is, because I've seen what God has done in my life and what He's done in others' lives. You know, I've seen, you know, we've all heard, you know, people in the church, you know, we have special speakers all the time, you know, we've all seen and heard about people who've been, like, healed of, like, cancer and other life-threatening illnesses. And not just the simple, oh, I went for chemo and now the cancer is gone, praise God. You know, that's great, and that does happen too, but I'm talking about, there's also been specific, you know, things that we've seen and heard of people who have been healed miraculously, you know, being told that they were going to die, you know, within a couple months or whatever, and we've seen these people healed. You know, you have examples of, like, Carol Kornacki, or a lot of the people in the Teen Challenge. We just had them here a couple weeks ago, and some of you might have heard what they had to say. So, I know personally, you know, even myself, like, even outside of just people who have come in speaking, you know, people who have been healed of things, you know. But at the same time, just because you pray over something and ask God for something doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the answer that you like. Because being a Christian is not just like taking a genie's lamp and rubbing it and getting your wish. You know, that's, you know, a lot of people think, you know, oh, I'll pray to God and something good is going to happen. And many times people turn to God only when they really need or want something. And they'll come calling like, oh God, you know, I'm months behind on my bills, I'm in danger of being homeless, please help me find a way to pay, or, oh Lord, you know, I got a bad report when I went to the doctor, I don't know how I'll be able to handle this, you know, please heal me, God. And sometimes God will answer these prayers, and sometimes God won't. And many times I've seen God not answer these prayers, and then the person will be all mad at God, just like, God, why didn't you help me? You know, I came pleading to you. Why have you forsaken me? You know, and they might even take it out on other fellow Christians. Or like, you've got a fake God. If your God was so loving, He would have helped me when I really needed it. Where was He then? You're a fool for believing. And hearing these kinds of things just gets me, you know, it makes me very sad, but also kind of angry. Just so you know that God doesn't have to answer anyone's prayers, because none of us deserve it. But we've all fallen short of the glory of God. However, God is a loving God that is filled with mercy and grace. God may not always want to give us God may not always give us everything we want, but God can provide everything we need. It may not always be the easy path, though, and sometimes people mistake that for God not answering your prayers, because He didn't do it exactly as how you wanted it. But think of it this way. Let's say you're not, you know, someone who's not a Christian, or that someone who may believe in God but not exactly have a close relationship with Him. You might ask God for something like what I mentioned before about financial relief and healing, etc. if God were to answer your prayer, how would you react to it? You know, would you give all the glory to God? Would you tell everyone you see, God did this for me, it's all due to Him, thank Him for His blessings? You know, and some people might, you know, but many might not, you know. But there's like the example in the Bible of Jesus healing the lame man. You know, he went walking and leaping and praising God. You know, that he was so happy and excited that was the first thing he did. He bolted out of there and told everyone, Jesus healed me, that it's all due to Him. You know, and that's how some people will do, but then there will be some people who wouldn't. But let's say at first you do give praise to God. Okay, great, and that's one thing, but sometimes it tends to be temporary. Because if you could keep on going and living your life the way you had been, then are you really grateful to Him? You know, one example I use sometimes, you know, when speaking to people, is like, that's kind of like the equivalent of teenagers that, you know, alright, most of us here are out of our teen years, some of us are still in there. Right, who here has ever been disrespectful to their mom or dad? Yeah, we've all done it. Everyone is guilty of that one. You know, let's say, you know, you have, you know, certain chores, like let's say, like the same thing as like a teenager who, you know, makes a mess of the house, doesn't follow the house rules. You're supposed to take out the garbage, you're supposed to clean this, you don't do it, and then you're disrespectful about it when your parent asks you to do it. You know, and that's an issue that I'm sure many of you have probably faced. You know, but then all of a sudden, you're that teenager, you get sick really bad. Your parent, even though they might be really annoyed with you because you might be a huge pain in the neck, will take care of you. Mom and dad will, you know, you might be really sick, you might be laid out for like a week, you know, let's say you catch pneumonia or something like that. They're going to wait on you hand and foot, they're going to make sure you're okay. They might even spoil you a little. It's like, oh, you know, here's some ice cream, you know, oh, you're bored, you're stuck in bed, here's Call of Duty 4, you know, I'm just going to do this. They'll do it, you know, sometimes they'll, you know, and then so you get better and you're all thankful, and you're like, oh, thanks Mom and Dad, you know, you really took care of me, you watched out for me while, you know, I was really sick. So then you're in that little honeymoon period where you're cool with your parents are cool with you. But then, and your parents are really happy, you know, because you're feeling appreciated, and they might last for a few weeks. But, you know, because everyone's on that emotional high. But then, as time passes, things may fade, and you start going back to your normal ways, not doing what you're supposed to do, disrespecting your parents again. And the question asks is, are you showing true love and gratitude for what was done for you? The answer pretty much is no. The way you show true love and gratitude for what has been done for you is by doing the right thing and living it every day. For the example above, in order for that teenager to show they are grateful for what their parents have done, they must do what their parents tell them to do and not disrespect them anymore. That would mean more to the parents than a simple thank you. Well, it's pretty much the same with God. If God does something for you, then thank Him, but don't just do it with mere words. You need to do it by your actions as well. Give God what He wants from you, and He doesn't ask for much. All He asks is that you honor, respect, and love Him above all other things. And that's pretty easy considering we have a lot of stuff that we tend to put ahead of God in our lives. Whether it be, you know, the TV, sports, hobbies, even relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, or work. You got some workaholics and stuff. Going back to my main point, if you think about it, the reason God might not have answered your prayer is because He knows your heart. God knows what we're thinking and what we're going to do. So He'll see that if you aren't going to give Him the glory and what He's done for you, why should He answer that prayer for you? It could be that He knows that you need to continue to go through this trial in order to be fully broken down to the point where you will eventually turn to Him. Now, some may balk at that concept and say, you know, what kind of loving God is that? He should help us no matter what, because we're supposedly made in His image. What kind of God would force us to go through trials in order to force us to serve Him? And that's the thing. You know, God doesn't force you to go through trials. You know, if you remember the book of Job, He said He would never specifically put a person through trials, but sometimes it's the person themselves that by their life they're the ones putting themselves in the situation, and they blame it on God. It's like, oh God, why is this happening? It's like, well, did you really look? Did you trace the steps back? You know, it probably because of choices you made, not positions that God put you in. Right? So to respond is, God does help many people that may not deserve it, just to show His love for that person. And maybe one day that person may look back and say, wow, you know, in times of great struggle and need, God really pulled through for me, and how have I repaid Him? Maybe it's time for me to change my ways. But then again, maybe the person won't do that, and will die without ever honoring God. That is an example of God's grace, giving us something that not only do we not deserve, but not even being grateful for it either. Now that is a loving God. In terms of the trials that we may go through, God isn't trying to test you or force you to come to Him. If we look at our circumstances, many times, as I said before, it's our own doings that got us into the positions we are in. God gives us free will to make our own choices. And sometimes that includes allowing us to make our own mistakes and suffer the consequences. As for the things that seem to come out of nowhere, like the illnesses and stuff like that, you know, maybe God has allowed that to enter into your life as a tool to bring you and your loved ones closer to Him. He's not forcing you into a relationship with Him. You can have your life on your own terms if you like. And many people do that. You have a large portion of the world doing that. But doing it on your own is the harder road. And you won't experience the peace that God gives, which is unlike the peace that you may experience in the world.